Stranger Things built this big bad boss up for seasons and then absolutely fumbled it, so today we're fixing that ending. Yes, that abysmal abyssal fight with the Mind Flayer. Hello, and welcome to Squawk Art House, where art meets 80s radio show chaos and a once beloved out-of-this-world series with a criminally bad finale. This is your Squawk Art House host, aka moi, aka Riot Roxy. I know you might have liked the final fight with Mind Flayer, because I'll admit it did have its merits, but as a sucker for horror, D&D, and Stranger Things, it fell a bit short, missed the mark. So come with me down an alternate universe road, and along the way, maybe you'll hear some opinions you agree with, or opinions that make you think, we'll put it that way. So grab a snack, get cozy, and turn your radio up, and let's take a look at how this ending should have gone. See, I've always thought Dimension X and the Hellscape being separate was kind of lame and a little messy. Two dimensions doing two slightly different jobs when they could be doing one job really well. So I'd merge them. One place, one unknowable nightmare, one environment that feels so crushingly hostile. Because when you do that, suddenly everything clicks. Vecna/Henry/1 is tied to the Hellscape and he's using Dimension X, so if we merge them, it feels like he isn't just using this place, he's part of it. Whatever happened to him in that cave didn't just scar him, it warped him, hollowed him out, and filled the space with something ancient and hungry. What this strange place wanted him to be. The same type of thing he inflicts on kids, hollowing them out emotionally and replacing them with what he wants them to be. And now that reoccurring Stranger Things theme, the cycle of abuse, isn't just subtext, it's literally built into the environment. And we really hammer home the idea that what happened to Henry was truly otherworldly and awful. And that's what we call environmental storytelling, baby. And how should we combine them? Well, we keep the function of Dimension X and keep the Hellscape's beautiful aesthetic. The same blood-red glow, the same thick rolling fog, the same visual language we first associated with the Mind Flayer back in Season 3. Cleaner lore, stronger themes, cooler vibes. So when the gang steps through, they're not in some vague, sandy nothingness. They're in Hellscape X. Picture it. A black fog rolls across the ground, swallowing everything that isn't glowing a deep, bloody red. Light doesn't travel correctly here, sound doesn't either. Footsteps echo too long, but voices don't bounce back the way they should. And you can barely see your hand in front of your face. Immediately they know, this isn't the Upside Down, this isn't home, this isn't human, and this place does not care if they survive. But our heroes are used to weird at this point, right? So we keep a lot of familiar dialogue. Steve and Jonathan, Dustin trying to cut the tension, but pay attention to Mike and Nancy. Nancy hands Mike a gun after she gets sick of him begging for one, and Mike's totally stoked about it, until Lucas points out, dude, that's a flare gun. And it plays like a joke. Keep that in mind for later. Because like I said, visibility here is awful. The fog never really lifts, it swallows light the way water swallows sound, and eventually, maybe on purpose, maybe on accident, however, it doesn't matter, Mike fires the flare, and just for a moment, the fog peels back, lit up in that red glow, curled up and absolutely massive, is the Mind Flayer. Not attacking, not rushing, just there, waiting. We watch the flare slowly glide through the air and realize too late it's fired right at the Mind Flayer, and as soon as that impact is made, we see its legs unfurl one by one, slamming into the ground. This impossible otherworldly mass rises to its full height, fully visible, just long enough to understand two things. It's enormous, and it's angry. And then the light dies. Now they know it's there, and they know it's awake. But now they can't see it anymore, which works for the fact the imagination always fills in the dark with something far crueler than reality ever could. Remember that for later too. From here, the fight plays out similarly to the show, scrambling for higher ground, shouting, panic, Nancy getting separated, using herself as bait, because at this point she has to be used to people chasing after her, right? But the difference is those clouds of darkness never stops being a problem. They aren't fighting a monster they can trap, they're fighting something they can only locate in flashes, and this is where Mike gets his time to shine, because in the finale, he didn't really get much screen time. So we're changing that, and we're doing this in a way that makes him a hero, gives him character, and adds to the final fight. See, he's not shooting flares just to hurt it. He's shooting flares so everyone else can see it. The first time we ever saw the Mind Flayer, it was lit by red lightning in Will's now memories. Distant, overwhelming, and untouchable. Now that same red light is being fired right back at it. Not by fate, not by prophecy, by choice. They're not scared kids anymore. I mean, they're still scared, absolutely, but now they're choosing to stand their ground, to scream at it to go away, less with their voices and more with guns, sure, but the point still stands. And get this, folks, this change is the gift that keeps on giving because of this little D&D fun fact. A little fun spell paladins can cast is Guiding Bolt. It's a burst of radiant flames that doesn't just damage an enemy, it marks them by illuminating them, giving your allies an advantage even through darkness and cover. That flare? That's a guiding bolt, baby. Mike lights the Mind Flayer up, cuts through the fog, and hands his friends an advantage, visibility, direction, and fighting chance. He's not trying to be the hero who lands the final blow. He's trying to make sure there is a final blow. And in my opinion, that's paladin behavior. And what class does Mike play in D&D? That's right, paladin. Now here's the thing the show forgot, and it's so important you can't help but ask yourself, what were they thinking? Monster horror ironically works best when you don't show the monster, or when you show it sparingly. Think The Babadook, The Invisible Man, A Quiet Place, even the Demogorgons early on. Fear lives in what you can't quite see, because when you show a monster clearly, some people will think it's terrifying, some will think it's silly, and people like me will go, yeah, that looks sick. And looking sick is great, but during a finale boss fight, you don't want cool, you want dread. So let me paint you a quick example. Nancy runs into a crevice as a distraction. She can barely see and neither can we. Her breathing is loud in her ears, she can feel the stone pressing in around her. Bam! A flare flashes. She can't see her brother, but she knows he's helping. In the red light, we catch a glimpse of the Mind Flayer rushing at her at an angle we can't see its face, only its body and how forcefully it's moving towards her. And as the flare dies out, so does our vision on the screen, until, bam, another flare. We don't see the Mind Flayer this time, we hear it as Nancy, nearly in tears, the poor girl struggles to reload her gun. Darkness once again. Nancy's breathing gets heavier, almost like crying, and then, bam, for the first time we see its face, red-lit, teeth gnashing and hungry. And is that example perfect? No, but I think it shows a little bit of restraint, not lighting this monster up in warm daylight, not constant wide shots, not the writers going, look at it, isn't this cool, over and over and over again. Preserve the mystique, make the characters problem solve in the dark, turn what looked like a joke into a survival mechanic. These changes make this fight 1,000 times more interesting. And honestly, these changes feel very Stranger Things to me. Because when I think of the Mind Flayer in Season 3, that was the Mind Flayer. A looming, unknowable presence, a force, not a creature. When I saw it in the finale, it felt like a generic sand monster you could throw into any universe. I mean, it looks all the same here, and if we throw it into, I don't know, like Tatooine on Star Wars, it still looks like it fits. It was cool, but it just wasn't the Mind Flayer. Now we have how they beat the giant spider. Let's get into the last segment, and I know, we'll have to say goodbye soon, but it's not over yet because we still have one more player to knock off this board. The way Vecna died in the show was so underwhelming. There was more tension when Will was screaming, "Your mom," on a hospital bed in Season 2. This was the final boss of the entire series. It needed weight. So here's how I do it. Elle still jumps into the Mind Flayer, but I'm not gonna be shy about it. She jumps straight into this thing's mouth. No fake outs, no almosts. We don't mess around here on Roxy's radio. And she doesn't just tear out its neck. No. She's gonna rip through its teeth to clear a safe path for her to go down. And that choice matters, because teeth are a pretty universal thing. We've all been to the dentist. We all know that feeling. It grounds the horror in something visceral and familiar. She tumbles down its throat, and we linger just long enough to really feel how big this thing is before she hits the ground. She hits the ground hard. Hard enough to be visibly injured. Still very much standing, but injured nonetheless. And already standing there waiting for her, Vecna. The fight begins similarly, but Elle is starting at a disadvantage, a bit injured in her little tumble into the belly of the beasts. She suspends Vecna in air all the same, but not to kill him this time, to stall. She's hurt, she's in too deep, and impaling him on some random spike? I mean, come on, big pointy spikes weren't a part of the show's themes from what I remember. But you know what has always mattered in this show? Childhood trauma. And this is where Will comes in. Will doesn't beg, Will doesn't plead, he doesn't say, "This isn't you, Pookie Bear." He speaks down to Vecna. Because Will has been tied to this horror since day one. He was set up as a sorcerer. Now, he deserves agency. He deserves to reclaim the narrative that stole his childhood. So the camera cuts to Will, his gaze is blank and his nose bleeds. Then we see Elle. We see Elle straining, holding out her hand, but we don't see this through a camera. We see this through Vecna's eyes. And here is when Will begins to speak. He talks about the pain Henry caused, about how these powers he uses were never truly his. He was just a vessel for this other world, copying and twisting Vecna's own words about Will being a vessel right back at him and turning him upside down. Because deep down, Henry Creel is just a scared little kid. And with no music to save him, no mercy, Vecna, floating, now slowly rises into the air. And as soon as he reaches the full height of where he can go, his head slightly tilts back. His limbs twist, and his bones snap and break. He feels all the pain he inflicted on everyone, and above all, he feels Will's determination that this never happens to another child ever again. With that, Vecna falls, and that, letting Will be the one to kill him, and Vecna-ing Vecna, adds an emotional layer to the finale and recontextualizes what we know about Henry and Will, because it raises the thought that Will could have become Vecna. He was exposed, he was isolated, but the difference was love, support, and the power of friendship. Just as it raises thoughts about what Will could have been, it gives sympathy to what Henry was, like the show wanted. He was like Will, but it still holds him accountable, because ultimately, Will chose to fight for good. The shell of the Mind Flayer collapses around Elle. She knows, even without seeing them, that her friends were there fighting alongside her the whole time. And everyone knows. It's finally over. And that's today's broadcast from Squawk Art House. If you like this rewrite, a like, comment, or subscribe keeps the signal alive, and I really do read what you send in, because this is a radio show and I listen to my callers. Until next time, stay cozy, stay creative, stay strange. This is Roxy signing off. Catch you on the next frequency.